Good evening. I'll call our September 24th Health and Human Services Committee meeting to order. Is there anybody from the public that would wish to address us? Is there any public available? Seeing none, is there any changes to the minutes from last month's committee meeting? Seeing none, we'll go into our resolutions.
First resolution this evening is authorizing funding in connection with the New York State Department of Health, Local Health Department Article 6 Performance Incentive Initiative.
Is there a motion? Mr. Drake, second. Mr. Neblonic. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is accepting supplemental funding from New York State Department of Health for Immunization Action Plan and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Motion, please. Mr. Doldo, second. Mr. Neblonic. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to public health services.
A motion. Mr. Doldo, second. Mr. Drake. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Fourth resolution? Yes. Amending the 2020 county budget relative to additional revenue from New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act Emergency Solutions Grant funding. This came to our attention this morning, and so we sent information out to all of you mid-afternoon, but it is late-breaking, to say the least. You said you wanted to have Teresa just address.
Yes, I think Teresa
bit.
would be able to address some of the questions I've heard late this afternoon from some members on this, and she also has a response to my email question, which as far as the budgetary breakdown on it, but I will defer to her at this moment.
Good evening. We have been waiting for word from OTDA in regards to this funding. We knew it was coming, but it was just a matter of them approving our plan, and this morning I finally received that approval. It is true that Jefferson County may not have seen a real impact to date due to COVID because our numbers are so low, but there are other factors to consider in regards to the impact of COVID overall in the community. To date, with the moratorium in place, of course, the evictions from landlords are on hold now through January, but we also see homeless individuals coming to us that have been evicted by family members or wherever they've been staying, and people say that they can no longer stay there. So we are still seeing a homeless there. We also, with the early release from prisons, we are seeing some more of that population, which is more of a labor-intensive population for us because they are difficult to house and keep stable and difficult for them to find employment, which is, as you know, with the COVID, employment is another factor. People that have been receiving the $600 federal incentive, most of that has gone away. So we are starting to see an uptick in applications at our agency. And unfortunately, not all jobs have rematerialized because of COVID. So people may not have jobs to go back to that they were hoping maybe they would after this money was gone. So we are starting to see those type of individuals. And the thing to remember with this funding is it can be used for not just for rental assistance. It can also be used for utility arrears, It can be used for security deposits, so we're kind of trying to stay away from that and using it more for the actual rent. I'm just looking, housing relocation, so if someone can no longer afford the place where they're staying at some point in time, they may have to move, so we can assist them with those moving costs. Utility deposits, rental arrears, utility arrears, moving costs. Case management was another piece that we added with this, that we had found in the past when we had the STEP grant, that having a case management piece was very important for these individuals to help stabilize them. These are normally individuals that have difficulty maintaining a stable housing environment. So having someone there to potentially advocate for them, to help them find housing assistance is very important. So we built in a case management piece with this funding also. And the last piece we built in was the SOAR, which we currently have in place, which assists people in applying for Social Security, which for some of these people will give them that stable income that they have lacked to help them maintain a stable housing. So, the breakdown pretty much is about $326,000 actually towards the housing assistance, rapid rehousing, prevention. We also built in emergency housing that would allow us to utilize hotel motels for individuals that may not have a place to go as a temporary thing. With the cold weather, we have Code Blue funding. Normally, we're still waiting for the state to send us word of Code Blue funding for this coming season, but that is only good for when the weather is below 32 degrees. So this would allow us to house people, hotel, motel that are homeless, that don't qualify for assistance usually because they've been sanctioned. And again, in response to COVID, I think that's an important thing that someone is not roaming all around with the potential that if they are positive, they could be spreading. So this will allow us to utilize some of the money for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Nabwanek?
Thank you, Teresa. I know the governor was holding back millions of dollars in the CARES money that we received early on. So this is part of that funding, obviously, that he's finally releasing.
He's finally releasing, yes. It is actually in our grants gateway and available to us. This is where we actually go to claim the funds.
Does the county have any other outstanding, like, money coming our way that through grants that you know, you said you expected this one? Is there others?
Are there other grants that we're waiting for? No, not like this one. So we haven't gotten any word. Like I said, Code Blue, we usually get word well, actually our Code Blue plan is usually due by now. And Code Blue is pretty, it's not a set amount of funding. What we do is we do a plan and tell the state how much funding we feel we need and for what. And then they approve it or they don't.
Any further questions? Mr. Doldo?
Thank you. Teresa, is some of this money used for security deposits also?
It can be, but we don't want to get into a lot of use for security deposits. If we can, we'll do the most we can using our letters of guarantee, because one of the things that has to happen is someone has to apply through us first. So they may be able to get assistance through us. If not, and they don't have any other funding, then we could potentially, I think with the previous STEP grants, a lot of that leaned heavily on security deposits, and I think that was one thing that the state, when we asked for kind of a debrief, we really weren't clear enough for them on how those security deposits were being used. So we kind of wanted to steer a little clear of the security deposit use this time.
So not only with that, but other programs, do we use security deposits? And if we do, how does that eventually roll back to us? I mean,
With public assistance, we use letters of guarantee. Basically, it amounts to a month's rent, and they have to provide us with a listing. We've gone back. That's something that had been previously in place years ago. When we lost the STEP grant, we went back to that. And we have been working with the landlords to make sure that they're comfortable with accepting our letters again.
basically covers them in case of any damage done, and then if that's the case, if there is damage done, is that back on us? How do we handle that?
If there's damage done, we can cover up to a certain amount under their assistance case. After that, we can't cover anything more.
Mr. Gray?
About what you're seeing now for a year. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions? I think I heard you say that individuals that had been sanctioned for a particular reason, they can apply for this program also?
They can apply for it, and we can utilize the portion we've set aside for the hotel motels. And with this, the individual is covered up to 50% of the area median income, 50% or less.
Okay. I mean, and they can also have the case manager assistance and, everything entitled within this grant they have access to as a sanctioned individual?
Yes, they could.
Okay. We still need a motion now. If somebody would like to offer a motion in a second for the resolution. Mr. Dodo, second. Mr. Nabawanek. Is there any discussion on the resolution? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. There's some departmental reports within the packet. Are there any questions on those? Is there anything further to come before the committee this evening? Mr. Doldo.
John, I just got one question on one of the packets there for Office of the Aging. I was just looking at the emergency meals and stuff delivered and wondered, there's a high number in the beginning for the first 2 months, and then all of a sudden they just kind of dropped off, and I didn't know if the drop-off is a normal number or if this is just a temporary thing that happens, or the emergency meals delivered and emergency shelf-stable meals delivered. Like in March,
You talk about departmental report?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the Office of the Aging, it went from 0 in March to 2,520 meals. And okay.
Exactly, yeah, no, what you're seeing is the impact of COVID initially, and then reeling back and trying to take care of it.
So this is kind of a new
So it is,
item.
that's hopefully a one-time
Yep.
event.
Okay.
You're not a year from now going to see the same kind of experience again.
Right, I just noticed it went from a high number in April, and then it kind of dropped off, and then August, all of a sudden, it spiked again, and I
That's
just
right,
didn't
because
know.
COVID really started to hit us late March into April,
Yep,
and then from then it was for April, May, June, July. Now we're trying to work our way through and get back online, and there was a lot of emergency meals delivered. The system was a little bit different than what we had typically used. A little broader in our interpretation of who's qualifying, but we got meals to seniors.
so was that a number that kind of held them for the 3 months? Is that why there was a spike again in August? That was
No,
just kind of my
well,
question was.
kind of, yeah, because again, our pool broadened a bit because we were finding that there were some folks who were delivering the meals now because it wasn't congregate, it was to the home, that there might be in an apartment complex somebody else that wasn't really getting anything in the short term. Our desire was to make sure seniors got the meals. In the strictest sense, maybe that should happen, or ultimately, maybe with that information in hand, we pass that on to other agencies that can provide that assistance. We just... Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you very much for, doing our part to assist our most vulnerable in our county. So, any further questions? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Maxson, second. Mr. Dodo. All in favor?
like to welcome everyone here to the September meeting of the County Standing Committee on Finance and Rules, and offer privilege of the floor. Anyone in the public? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, moving on. Privilege of the floor, close that. Minutes, last meeting. Corrections, deletions, they'll stand as presented. And at this time, then we can move on to our Finance and Rules sponsored resolutions.
First resolution this evening is setting time and place for a public hearing on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2021.
I have a motion, please. Legislator Drake. Legislator Gerald. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is amending the 2020 county budget to provide for payment of tax certiorari refunds.
Motion, please. Legislator Navawanic, Legislator Gerald. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Concurring in settlement of tax certiorari proceedings and authorizing refund of taxes in connection therewith for the WGS Philadelphia Housing Association.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson, Legislator Drake. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next is authorizing vacating of judgment of foreclosure for owners of certain parcels of real property and discontinuance of foreclosure proceedings.
May I have a motion, please? Legislator Drake, Legislator Navawanic. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Appointing county administrator. Who put
Motion.
that one in?
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Cantwell. Discussion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you. Approving appointment of deputy county administrator.
Motion, please. Legislator Cantwell, Legislator Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next is adoption of retention and disposition schedule for New York local government records.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Nabawanic. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Accepting funding from the Center for Tech and Civil Life and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
May I have a motion, please? Legislator Gerald. Legislator Cantwell. Discussion. Legislator Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering who the Center for Tech and Civil Life is. Is that a private entity?
Yes, it is. I don't know much about it, but they've offered up the opportunity for this. In fact, actually, kind of interestingly, NISAC sent out a note to all local governments that this was available if you applied. Our election commissioners were already on top of it, had applied, and at the time we're getting the notice that we could apply, we also were getting notice from the election commissioners that we've received a $60,000 grant. It's a one-time item.
Oh, is it a national organization or is it state?
I don't know. Do you? National? Okay.
I'll look more into it online. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to amendment, Resolution 9.
Vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, we didn't vote? But sure, we did discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Carried.
Now moving on. Amending software maintenance agreement for the Board of Elections software.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald. Legislator Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget relative to Board of Elections.
Motion, please. Legislator Campbell. Legislator Johnson. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing employment agreement with the Jefferson County Civil Service Employees Association Local 1000, AFSCME AFL-CIO.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Nebelonik, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing use of capital chargebacks in relation to debt service costs of a $3.5 million maintenance and revitalization bond for Jefferson Community College.
Motion, please. Legislator Campbell, Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to real property tax service department.
Motion, please. Legislator Gerald, Legislator Cantwell, discussion. We do have the real property director here. If anyone would like to hear anything more on that? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 14.
Okay. Not unlike the committee meeting that just concluded, we also had a late-breaking resolution come to us today, and we passed it on to everybody, and it's also on your desk. Concurring in the settlement of tax certiorari proceedings and authorizing refund of taxes in connection therewith for Liberty Sackets Harbor, LLC.
Motion, please. Legislator Drake. Legislator Johnson, discussion. Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, moves us to the General Services sponsored.
First one this evening is amending the 2020 county budget and capital plan in relation to the Watertown International Airport Aircraft Rescue Firefighting Facility Construction Project.
Motion, please. Legislator Cantwell. Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to fuel farm repairs at the Watertown International Airport.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Nebelonik, discussion. Legislator Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a procedural question. These are already moved and voted on in general. We don't have to move these again, do we?
No, well, okay, no, we don't. And that's the rub. Meeting that I chose to, 2 meetings I did that at, and I don't remember what happened, but no one took issue in the packet when we moved it as a packet until the night of the board meeting, and then something that could have been discussed at committee went down at the full board. So I'm going through all this twice, which is one of the options of the way to do it, which is, to me, redundant, but I wouldn't want to get caught off guard yet again when we think it went through committee, but in fact, it didn't really come up for discussion because we didn't itemize each.
So with that being said, though, I mean, they're still moved, though. So,
Right. Well,
so we shouldn't have to have a first and a second, though. We should just go right into discussion, right? I mean, they've already been moved in general services. I don't think...
Possibly, but as I understand it, we're dealing with it as a finance issue, not as it was presented.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Got it.
And I'd be glad to do them all at once if you get your colleagues to not change their mind at the next meeting. Well, okay. So we had discussion. This time, we're actually going to have a vote. I'm not going to forget. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution is authorizing agreement amending 2020 county budget in relation to the fiscal year 20 State Homeland Security Program grant.
Motion, please. Legislator Nebelonik and Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget to recognize insurance recovery and allocating same in the Sheriff's Department budget.
Motion, please. Legislator Johnson. Legislator Drake, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement amending the 2020 county budget in relation to the state fiscal year 20 state law enforcement terrorism prevention program grant.
Motion, please. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Legislator Drake, Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Last couple of resolutions are Health and Human Services Committee.
Accepting supplemental funding from the New York State Department of Health for Immunization Action Plan and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Motion, please. Legislator Cantwell, Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Amending the 2020 county budget in relation to public health service.
Motion, please. Legislator Drake, Legislator Johnson, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And actually, that resolution for public health that we just introduced tonight should also be referenced here, but I don't have it in front of me, so we'll just recognize it as the third resolution.
Okay. Amending the 2020 county budget relative to additional revenue from New York State Office of Temporary and Disability
Yes.
Assistance
Thank you very much.
for coronavirus
Perfect.
aid, relief, economic security, CARES.
You
I
got
I always wanted to read one of these.
Yeah.
Motion, please. Legislator Nebelonik, Legislator Gerald, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. So, we did all the finance resolutions and general services, health and human services. Attached, of course, revenue and expenditure spreadsheet, the monthly reports from the clerk, and the health benefit report. Are there any other things coming before the committee? Legislator Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if we have a schedule for, budget workshop or anything like that.
Just got discussed this evening with the...
Yes, and to the extent, one of the comments I was going to make is on everybody's desk, as Anthony has already identified, are the narratives for all the departments to begin the process. I've got a quick cover note and also reference the dates in there. It's Monday, October 26th, and Tuesday, October 27th would be the first two budget dates. Yep. I keep saying that. October 26th and October 27th, Monday and Tuesday. Yes. I assume so, unless, yes.
And that's in the packet when we open it
Yep,
to the notes.
that's correct. Yep.
Anything else? Anything further?
Yeah, one more thing I would note for the good of the order, the Controller's Office annual fiscal stress score came out to all municipalities in the state of New York. We passed. We have passed in the 3 years with resounding colors, but again, we passed. And we know that because it says no comment, which means we passed. Fortunately, we passed. But anyway, it's the third year they've done the program, which is a good indicator if there are communities that have some concerns and things to watch out for. I think in our neck of the woods, Franklin County was referenced, but not in a crisis state, but they were referenced. But I don't think anybody else in the vicinity was.
Those are big money counties, Westchester and Suffolk.
Yes, that's, yes. Mm-hmm.
But they can keep it. So, anything further? Okay, motion to adjourn. Legislator Nebelonik, Legislator Cantwell, all in favor? We're adjourned.